Hi, grade 8s. What we're going to do today is work through some of the questions from the geometry task way at the beginning, as well as the ratio and proportion questions that were given a couple weeks ago. While we're doing that, we're going to use something called Equatio MathSpace to help us show our work. So we're going to start by opening our Equatio extension. And when we do that, we get our menu along the bottom. Then I'm going to click on the question that I want to work on. So you see how we have the blue box around there? Now I'm going to select Edit Math, and it's going to bring me out into this white board space. Now for me, I've turned off the grid in the background, and you can do that by opening Equatio, Options, Space Options, and then Style. So you can change that to graph paper if you'd prefer it, but for these questions, I don't feel we need that, so I'm not going to do that. So we're talking about a triangle that has an angle of 40 degrees and 100 degrees, and we want to know if it's isosceles, equilateral, or scalene, and then we need to kind of explain why. So I'm very much a proponent of creating diagrams. So I'm going to look at this shape tool, and there's all kinds of options here when you look at it. However, for me right now, I just want to come up with this triangle. I don't like that it's filled in like that. So I'm going to change the fill because the color is too pink. And I'm going to go there. So I'm going to then close this, and I don't really need that. So I'm just going to click that arrow. Then I want to kind of estimate where these angles would be. So I'm going to put in 100 degrees. And let's say this one down here is 40 degrees. So isosceles means two of the sides are equal, which will automatically mean two angles are equal. Equilateral means that all three sides are equal, so that means all three angles have to be 60 degrees. And scalene means no sides are equal, which will ultimately mean no angles are equal. So I know that the angles in a triangle add up to 180 degrees. So I can turn this into a little equation. So I know I'm going to call this x up here because I don't know what it is. 100 plus 40, I'm going to put my degrees in, plus x has to equal 180 degrees. So we have 140 degrees plus x equals 180. I want to get x by itself, so I'm going to do the opposite, which is subtracting 140 from both sides. So I'm left with x equals 40 degrees. And then I'm like, okay, that makes sense. So I have 40 degrees. So that means the angles in my triangle, I have 40, 40, and 180. Two of them are the same, so that must mean the triangle is isosceles. But I don't think I have enough room to write that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select all of my math that I have right here, and I'm going to press the letter G. And you'll notice what that did was it put them all together. Oh, one of my degrees got cut off, but I'm not too worried about that right now. I'm just going to take this and drag it over here. Got cut off. What that does is it gives me a little bit more room. So now I'm going to say, I'm going to handwrite. You could type it too, but I just kind of want to look at the handwriting. The triangle is isosceles since two angles are the same. So I got my work done. I'm happy with my answer. What you need to do next in order to get it into your original document is you're going to press this button up here where it says Insert. So when I hit that, it takes a second. Be patient. It puts this into my document so I can see all your work. So that was that question. Now we're going to do the same kind of thing with this question right here. So consider the kite, which is made up of two isosceles triangles. Determine the measure of angle OMG. So I'm going to select once again. I still have my Equatio toolbar open. I'm going to go to Edit Math. I'm going to wait a second for it to open. So then it says, consider the kite, which is made up of two isosceles triangles. Determine the measure of OMG, the angle OMG. So because it's isosceles, I know right away that this side, so I'm using that pen tool, and this side have to be the same. This side, oops, that my pen tool got unselected. This side and this side must be the same. So when two of the angles are isosceles, or the triangles isosceles, that means two of the angles are the same. So I know that this angle right here is x. I'm going to call this one x. Then I'm going to call these two here y. So then I'm going to think about that. I'm like, okay, well, in that top triangle, OLM, I know that x plus 80 has to equal 180 degrees. X and x, I know there's two of them, so I have 2x is going to equal 180, take away 80, I have 100. And then to get x by itself, I'm doing the opposite of multiplying by 2. So I get x is 50 degrees. I'm going to get rid of this over here. Make sure my calligraphy is selected. I'm going to do the same thing with my other isosceles triangle. However, I'm going to jump ahead a little tiny bit because I have 2y's plus 50 equals 180. So 2y equals, I'm subtracting 50 from both sides to get the 2y by itself. So we have 130. Then I'm going to divide by 2, y equals 65 degrees. Now I'm not quite finished because I want to know what angle OMG is, and that's the combination of x and y. So we have 50 plus 65 equals 100 and, oops, I'm going to undo, because 50 and 65 is 115, not 135 as I was originally. So we got 105 degrees. So I got all my work on here. I feel that the teacher will understand everything. So I'm going to go and I'm going to hit insert. And I have patience. And there I go. I see my work in my document. So next we're going to go to the next question. So this one here seemed to cause lots of problem. I've changed it up a little bit so that when you try it on your own, you don't have the exact same question. So just like everything else, I'm going to select the picture. I'm going to hit Edit Math. I'm going to wait. There we go. So here it tells me DE and DF are the radii of a circle with center D. Determine the size of angle X, giving reasons. Okay, so because it's a radii, that means when I select my pen tool, this side and this side have to be the same. I know that for sure. So the fact that those two sides are the same means the radii are the same. Now, I just realized when I'm looking at this question, you don't 100% know that the opposite sides are also the same. However, that was my intention for this question. In hindsight, I would have said that you were creating a rhombus or parallelogram in this case, a rhombus, because I know this side and this side. So we're going to make that, draw that conclusion here. So now when we're looking at this, I know that I have x and 42 degrees. So if this is a rhombus, I know that DE has to be parallel to FG. And if that's the case, that means that I have co-interior angles. So I have this C pattern right here. So I know that x plus 42 has to be 180 degrees. So I'm going to subtract 42 from both sides. So x is going to equal 138 degrees. That's one way of doing this question. The other way that you can work on this question, maybe the parallel lines don't make that much sense, but I know that angle F is 42. So angle E has to be 42. And then you may remember that any quadrilateral adds up to be 360 degrees. So I could say that I have 360 minus 42 minus 42. So we have 360 degrees. So 360 degrees minus 84. That's going to equal 276. So then I know that x has to be half of that. So divide that by 2, and we get 138, which is the same answer I got the other way. So then I'm going to hit insert. I showed my work. The important thing with that question is recognizing whenever you know that something's a radii, they're always equal. Our next question that we're going to look at is a ratio question. So we have simplify the ratio 88x to 99x squared. I think this one threw students a little bit because of the variable that we had there. So for this question, while we're waiting for it to open, I'm actually going to type my solution instead of using the tool. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to kind of line it up a little bit. So if we want to make sure we have things lined up, we're going to do Shift Enter, Shift Space to start. So I'm going to do 88x. I'm just recopying the question right now with the ratio, so our colon, and then I have 99x. To get squared, I'm going to start typing the word squared. So this is what I get. Now, when I'm looking at that, whenever we're finding or trying to simplify a ratio, we're looking for the greatest common factor that each of those values have. So for this particular question, I look at 88 and 99. I know 11 is the greatest common factor that we have here. But we can't forget about the variable that's there. The 88 has 1x with it, and the 99 has an x squared, which means there's two of them. So I have 1x that's common to both. So I want to kind of copy what I have here exactly. So I'm going to do Control, Shift, Enter, and it gives me the exact same line. So to simplify, we divide by what our greatest common factor is. So I'd said that that's going to be 11x. I'm going to do the same thing over here. So I moved over. I'm going to hit the slash button, which is usually next to your shift. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other. And then you'll notice that I need to get down to here. So 88 divided by 11 is 8. X divided by x has a value of 1. So all that's left there is the 8. So I'm going to keep my colon in that column. Then over here, 99 divided by 11 is 9. If I have two x's on top and one on the bottom, so if I have x squared and I'm dividing it by x, I'm left with an x. So I'm going to hit Insert Math. So I see my work. I'm just going to close this. Anytime you want to close anything, select the menu that was open. I don't need this open either. So I look at that work and I'm like, okay, that's what I need. So I'm going to hit Insert. You could have done that by hand, but I want to kind of get you used to being able to type math as well. Okay, so we got two more questions here. Bear with me. All right, so once again, I'm going to select it. I'm going to go to Edit Math. So this was another question where lots of students kind of struggled with in the MathSpace version that you were working on. So it says, find the value of t if 3 is to 5 as t is to 4. So basically what we're doing here is we're looking for equivalent proportions. So in this question, I'm actually going to do this one with the handwriting tool. You could type it if you want. But a ratio is essentially, can be written as a fraction. So this is like having 3 over 5 equals t over 4. So we kind of got to figure out, well, what did I do to the number 5 to make it become 4? So I'm going to say that again. What did I do to the number 5 to make it become 4? Because this has to be equivalent. It has the exact same value. So there's a bunch of different ways that we can solve a question like this. But probably the best way of thinking of it is getting a common denominator. So if I look at 5 and 4, what would be a common denominator between 5 and 4? 20 is the lowest one that we can get. So I need to multiply this by 4, and what I do to the bottom, I do to the top. Same thing over here, times 5 times 5. So I have 12 over 20 equals 5t over 20. So because these values are the same, I can then say that 12 equals 5t. Then I'm going to divide both sides by 5 because I want to get that t by itself. So I have 12 over 5 equals t. That is my answer, and I'm going to leave it like that because we want it to be most simplified. If in this question you were to do 12 divided by 5, you would probably get 2.4 as your answer. And depending on the situation, that may be completely acceptable because there's no rounding or anything involved. However, when possible, try to keep your answers in reduced fraction form. Okay, so we have one final question that we're going to look at. So in this question right here, it says increase 8 in the ratio of 5 to 2. So I'm going to hit Edit Math. Wait for it to open. Sometimes it can be a little quicker than other. So when we're doing this right here, I'm going to type this one. So it says increase 8 in the ratio of 5 over 2. So we're basically doing 8 multiplied. So I started typing the word multiply. 5, actually let me start fraction, 5 over, whoops. So you see I did over right here and it didn't go into space. So I just hit backspace to fix it. And then I'm going to just move my cursor down. So I have 5 over 2. Then I'm going to do Shift Enter to get a new line. I'm going to put an equal sign. So 8 times 5 over 2. That's like having 8 over 1 multiplied by 5 over 2. I'm going to do Shift Enter. When we multiply fractions, the numerator is multiplied by the numerator, so we get 40. The denominator times the denominator is 2. And you'll notice right now if I'm under in the fraction and I hit Shift Enter, nothing happens. So I hit my right arrow once and it puts me in the middle, and then I'm going to hit Shift Enter. So I get equals 20. So I'm going to hit Insert Math. To close this here so I can see better, I'm going to re-hit the equation editor, and I'm going to hit the arrow down button over here. So I look at that, I have my answer. So I'm going to insert. So I have my work. Now, if it had said decrease 8 in the ratio of 5 over 2, we wouldn't multiply by 5 over 2, we would divide by 5 over 2. So hopefully after watching this video, you'll feel more comfortable in answering these questions and feel more comfortable in using the Equatio workspace. If you have any questions, as I've said in every email, please do not hesitate to ask.